Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you here. We are going to kick off 2026 webinars with an introduction on AI myths. We're going to bust some myths and talk about fact versus fiction. AI seems to be everywhere in the world and every part of your daily life almost. But today's topic is going to focus on facility managers and what you need to know when it comes to AI, fact or fiction. Before we get started, I am just going to go over a couple of things in Big Marker that are available to you. We do like our webinars to be as interactive as possible. So on the upper right-hand part of your screen, you have a couple of options for interacting with us. One is a chat feature, and that will be shared with not only our presenters and myself, but everybody else on the call as well. We will pose a couple questions in there just to get to know you better, get to know our audience better, and allow you to respond. We also have a Q&A feature. If you have questions for our speakers, please go ahead and add them there. And as time allows at the end, we will pose those questions to our speakers and go through them. So with that, we are ready to get started. So I'm going to turn it over to our speakers to introduce themselves and dive right in.
Alyssa, go for it.
Sure, fine. So welcome everyone. My name is Elisa Renka. I'm the Managing Director for the Digital Business in EMEA for Johnson Controls. I've been in the smart building industry for quite a while now, seeing all the hype curves and phases, and I'm really excited to have this debate today with the one and only Matthew.
Thank you very much. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Matthew Marson, the Managing Director for Technology Consulting in EMEA at JLL, and I've been lucky enough to work on all sorts of wonderful and wacky smart building projects over my career. Things like the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, 22 Bishopsgate in London, and some of the big fun smart city stuff in the Middle East. I'm in Dubai this evening. Really looking forward to getting into the conversation. Where should we start?
Very good question. Well, I think, the big question, the big debate at the moment, or the latest hype curve, if you may, is, what AI? What is AI? What is it doing? We talk about it. It's the, it's the buzzword bingo, if you may. But what does it actually deliver? And does it always deliver? And of course, AI comes with, all the different facets of it. So we've had AI applied in the smart building industry for quite a while in terms of machine learning. And even there, we're still, I think, not ready, or I don't know, Matthew, how you see it, but from my perspective, we're not ready. So it's a topic we need to discuss. But then if we look at the kind of development in the last months or maybe half a year in terms of AI, it's taken major leaps. And our industry has not maybe yet embraced it fully. But we're moving towards that, and I think it's very interesting now to discuss with you that where are we today, where will we be tomorrow, and how will this impact? So the first topic or the first myth that I'd like us to discuss is about predictive maintenance, because I think that's one of the ones that's been on the table for the longest in terms of machine learning, and it's stated that it can reduce equipment downtime by even up to 30% or even more in some cases, and help identify anomalies in HVAC systems before they cause failures. So is this, from your perspective, Matthew, your experience with a lot of different projects and using different products, is this the case? Are we reaping those benefits and that ROI from predictive maintenance that everyone claims?
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I don't know why. I think overall, the sort of industry discourse seems to be at either end of the spectrum. There is the one camp that's got kind of deep cynicism about the abilities of AI and what it means to real estate. And then you've got the other camp on the exact opposite side who are super hopeful about the future and even some of the things that you can do today. But I don't really know if there's anyone in the middle who can see like the sort of medium ground in it. And I suppose predictive maintenance is one of the kind of best examples for it, because it's not really that new, but I don't understand why it's not used everywhere. Like a BMS, a building management system, is a wonderful tool for getting all of your equipment across a building or even a portfolio connected to know exactly what's happening. But then the people that operate those buildings are expected to have the brains of a computer to kind of understand all of the perhaps even millions of points of data that could be updating sort of every 5 minutes, and is able to optimize it in a wonderful way. Whereas really all that we fed the building management system was a set of schedules and some temperatures, and then to make a noise if it thinks there's a problem. And where predictive maintenance is a job that is fit for AI and specifically machine learning, is that it is able to look at all of the different rows of Excel at the same time, if you were. This is how I imagine it. And to know how the different machines sort of interface with each other and what that means in order to make a prediction. And when it's something that it's like really confident about, it can then automatically go and make those changes. And I've certainly implemented some of that software as much as up to a decade ago, and it did have those wonderful results. And I sort of look at a lot of building owners and perhaps businesses, and I just don't understand why it's not like the basic first tool that they've got, particularly if I think about some of the probably cost cutting measures that they've got, or even those that have got particularly stringent ESG reporting requirements. It feels like a myth, but I don't think it should be a myth, you
Yeah,
know?
that's a very, very good point. And I often wonder like what is behind. I mean, I ask myself the same question, why are we not just implementing this everywhere? Because I think everyone who has implemented predictive maintenance has seen the benefits. I mean, we have customers who just from one motor failure avoidance, avoid, for example, a chiller, avoid 150,000 or so, just that one time avoidance of costs. So the ROI is there. And the question is why, as you said, is it not implemented? Is it because we don't want to shift that power to software? We want to be in control as humans, and we feel that we are not in control if we shift that power. Or is it because we still feel that buildings are kind of living and breathing organisms, and we feel them more than we, want to base decisions on data? I don't know, but it's a very good question, because I think, as you said, it feels like a myth, but it is a fact that there is a lot of benefit that you can gain from predictive maintenance. And for those in the audience who are still wondering whether should I or should I not, I think the best way to describe it is, as you said, Matthew, it's a lot of Excel lines, it's a lot of computational power that's needed if you think about all the equipment in a building, let alone a fleet of buildings, and to rely on the human brain to be on top of that is quite risky. The human brain can be used maybe for something a little bit more better equipped to do than computational power. So yeah, predictive maintenance has been around the block for quite a while, but for some reason still is not where it should be.
No one has ever said to me, "Oh, I really regret implementing that predictive maintenance." So that's got to be a good sign. The main one that I think of is perhaps the reason that it remains a myth is because it used to be quite a technical challenge to
Mm,
onboard a building to it, because you would have to know how the person that commissioned the building management system had like named everything.
mm,
And that was quite an activity. If you have got like 1,000 bits of equipment, and let's say they've got between 12 and 15 points on them each, if you've got something that's fairly modern, to know what each one of those is and where it is and how it relates to each other was quite the achievement to get it set up and configured as a tool. But with the recent developments that we've had in generative AI, it's not been as much of a problem anymore. Things like Project Haystack, or the Digital Building Naming Convention that's on GitHub, a combo of some Google and some Arup, and getting that ontology right has helped us to take a massive step forward. So now that you can onboard a building management system into one of these predictive maintenance systems with so much ease, that I don't know if that is a barrier anymore. And I've often seen lots of cases where the savings normally pay for the setup and operationalization of a system for 5 years within about 18 months. So I think the business case stacks up. Maybe it's now left in the human factor of, oh, do I really trust it? It feels a bit black boxy.
Yeah, maybe we need to let go of that, that old-fashioned thought of machine learning, meaning that we need to prompt the machine to learn, right? We need to write all the algorithms. We need to be, kind of behind that intelligence that will then be just executed. I mean, the way AI has developed, it's, AI will learn on its own, right? So it will learn things that we don't have to prompt as humans. And that's the next level of predictive maintenance as well, where we're going into this real optimization, not only the computational power that machine learning used to be. Very nice. Then let's move on to the next one, the next use case of AI. So energy optimization, and again, one that has been around the block. And this is often the one that is, at least in my experience, do tell me, Matthew, if you have a different experience, the one that's, the first one maybe to be implemented in terms of usage of AI, and one with surefire guaranteed cost savings. What's your take on this?
An absolute no-brainer. I've seen lots of it. In fact, I think I've probably done some deployments in the range of about 10 million square meters over my career, and I am yet to see a building that isn't doing simultaneous heating and cooling, which basically means that the machines are being used to make some hot, make some cold, which then basically then combines them together in the air system to make what is effectively outdoor air temperature anyway, rather than just blowing some air through the building in a place that was probably clean enough to start with, and all of the money that goes into the sort of wastage of that. There is so much of it. Never mind things that are more sophisticated that you could be doing. So for one of my, I think, favorite use cases that I ever worked on was for a building in Dublin where there's a lot of hay fever. And so we installed a PM 2.5 sensor that looks at particulates of the size of pollen. And on days that we could detect high pollen, we would change the settings of the mixing box in the air handler in order to make sure that the air was taken through a HEPA filter so that we weren't blowing pollen around the building, which was good for the kind of health and well-being of folks in there. But to do that the whole time, because of how thick some of these HEPA filters are, it costs a fortune in energy. So we'd found the right balance between health and well-being and sustainability, as an example.
Oh, I would certainly appreciate that, being a major sufferer of hay fever. So that's a very nice use case. Love it. But do you believe that, or would you guarantee the energy savings? Would you be willing to put your name behind it and say, yes, I guarantee you, dear customer, I guarantee you will get cost savings when you apply an AI-driven energy optimization?
Personally, yes, with some caveats. And I think those caveats are that you have to have faith in the system, and that you're not going to do lots of overriding, and that you were honest about the way that you say that you run the building to start with. Because if it's like a sort of 24/7, I don't know, like party destination where you need to keep things on all of the time, and there's no places that we can make those optimizations, it naturally makes it very difficult. But in most situations, and particularly when I think about offices in particular, there are always some savings that can be done if the systems are allowed to do their own thing. In fact, I would say that the more kind of cooling demand that you have, the better the savings are that you're gonna get from a system like this, actually.
And I think you touched upon a very important point. It's if we let the systems run autonomously, the ones that are there to optimize. And I think, that is why, yes, I agree with you. I would put my name behind as well to say there is always cost savings to be done in energy optimization in buildings. Show me a building that's so energy optimized that it would, just function perfectly without any optimization potential, rarely. So yes, I would put my money on it. But I think here it is in one shape or form, it is a myth exactly for what you said, that it depends on how the system is being used. It depends on, if people are overriding it, then it doesn't, even if you have the most fanciest system, it will not bring you those outcomes. And of course, also in the data quality in that system. So crap in, crap out, if you don't have clean data, or a system that can read complex data and make it clean, then very, very soon you run into those kind of trouble. But the human element is something we should not underestimate, the impact of it. And very often I have also seen clients that have all the good intent in applying the best software and the best systems, but if it's not used, if it's not adopted, the technology does not bring that value. So on its own, technology doesn't bring the value, but when adopted correctly, it absolutely does. So guaranteed, yes, but with caveats. I really like
Terms and
that.
conditions apply.
Yes, exactly. All right, we're flying through, but I think for the next one, we will have probably a longer conversation as we get now to the more, let's say, modern use cases. So the next topic is about conversational AI. So you already mentioned Gen AI. Conversational tools are just a gimmick in the smart building industry or in smart buildings. What's your take on conversational AI?
Oh, absolutely not. So if I just take, it's a particular bugbear of mine, the simple scenario that I want to book a meeting room. Some workplace apps today will take me through a kind of 10 screen process that is just the absolute worst. Whereas in the and we have sort of lied to ourselves as an industry that we've made life more convenient because it's on an app. And no, we haven't. We've just probably done somebody out of a job and pushed admin onto more people who aren't as good at it. And if I think about like the past in ways that I used to book a meeting room, I might send somebody a message and get a reply to say, yeah, it was done. Or I would go talk to a receptionist and it would be done in the matter of moments versus what could likely take up to 2 minutes to mess with an app and for it to go wrong and not to get the right answer anyway. It doesn't seem right to me. Whereas the sort of future that I have in my head is one that is a bit like Downton Abbey, if you've seen that. It's one of my absolute favourites. The butler, Mr. Carson. I almost want to train my Siri to act like my butler so that it understands my preferences and so that when I go to a building, it will interface with the butler there and things will happen. And the way that I kind of want to see that in an everyday experience is if I can just WhatsApp a building. So maybe a QR code will help me join a WhatsApp chat with whatever the AI butler thing is there. I'll explain what I want, and then an agent of some sort can go and do all of that legwork for me and basically say, oh, that's fine, it's the one on the third floor in the corner, and I know that you're gluten-free, so the sandwiches provided will be perfectly safe, don't worry. And then maybe it'll even make my life even better, and then email me the calendar invite to Outlook as well. So all of those automations and workflows we can totally do. Or even if there's one brilliant client situation that we've got at the minute using some of the investment that we've made into what we call JLL GPT, is we've built one of our engineering clients an agent that's conversational that helps both their staff and our staff from the facilities management perspective interpret the health and safety codes, which today probably before we kind of built this tool looked like quite a daunting set of manuals and processes, and you would probably use some of what you can remember from training and best judgment. But now, because it helps to break it down for them and turns it into plain English, I think we're likely to see better health and safety outcomes from doing something like that. So I think I'm hopeful for it. There's obviously a lot of noise and nonsense, but I think with the right training and as we learn a lot from sort of user feedback along the way, I think it will get better and better.
And I think with conversational AI, I mean, yes, it is or was, let's say, the hype topic of 2025, Gen AI, right? Then we moved to agentic, we'll talk about that's the hype topic of 26, but 25 was all about Gen AI. And I think, with every hype topic, you kind of just implement it everywhere just for the sake of saying that, oh, now we have Gen AI here, we have conversational AI, fantastic. And that kind of deflates the value of the topic as a whole, because everyone gets just sick and bored of it, of seeing a chatbot pop up everywhere where you even might not need it. But when you think about smart buildings, actually there's a lot of services that you need. As you said, you want to book a meeting room or something like this, and you don't want to go into a different app, or let alone several apps, to get where you need to be. As a user of a building, that is absolutely valuable, that you are able to just speak to the building and not have to think about what interface am I now looking at, or where can I find it, how many clicks do I need to have. So I think there's an absolute value. The other value, as you said, with your health and safety example, is the operational side of the building. So the facility managers, what can they do with conversational AI? Because I think very often we think about conversational AI for the user of the building, so the assistant, the butler. But also we need assistants and butlers when we operate the building and to understand, for example, what is the data telling me? So you have great expert software, be it on predictive maintenance, be it on energy savings or some other topic or space planning. But if you can ask the software, as in, okay, what should I be seeing here? What is the thing I should be focusing on? What am I missing even? I'm doing these and these tasks with my building, or this is how I'm operating and optimizing. This is what I'm focusing on. Am I doing it right? Like, what is the data telling me that I just don't see, even if you have a fancy dashboard, or even if you have, it kind of laid in front of you as the expert, as the facility manager, the expert operator of the building. Still, we are humans. We easily miss something, right? And I think that's a real added value, that you can just conversationally basically ask the building on the go, what should I be seeing here? Can you please show me this data in a visual format? Or can you show me a trend, or compare this data set and that data set? Can you please help me here, without it all having to be kind of baked into an existing dashboard or an existing widget? You can actually also customize just by asking the information that you want to receive. And I think that's highly valuable with conversational AI, and maybe less talked about in our industry, because we still see it more as the building end user application. The other part where I think it's extremely interesting is how you can, for the space planning perspective, ask questions, and again, give me simulations. What would my space look like if I'm planning to add 300 people to this building? How should I be doing it best, for example? Then you can just ask that question without having to use different software. The question I would have them to continue on this to you, Matthew, is that what will be the role of UX and kind of the interfaces, UIs for humans, when everything becomes more conversational? It's not going to replace everything, right? It's not going to go from zero to hero, but there will be more and more conversational interfaces. So what will that mean for expert software from your perspective?
Well, I think we've seen a total change in how comfortable somebody is with that kind of long blank text box. Whereas probably the early days of search, we might ask a kind of human question anyway, and then be disappointed by some of the results that we got back, and then the extra work that we have to put into going into different web pages and scanning it and trying to synthesize that information. But now I think a lot of us feel that a lot more comfortable in asking natural language questions and getting an answer back that is probably sort of 80% correct. So it feels that we're now a lot more relaxed about asking a system a question and being able to trust what we get back. And I think that has perhaps made us even more demanding of it. But we're still at the kind of awkward ask response type, Alexa, turn on the lights. And you have to ask in a very specific way in the right accent in order to get it to work. And I think the future of UX might be, again, going back to the butler thing, you don't have to ask explicitly. It infers from what it's listening to. And I like to think of this building that I kind of can smell you coming. And that basically means you've got a lot of, if it's like wearables or if it's your phone, even through Wi-Fi, you're able to triangulate like a person that you can deduce who it is to probably the nearest 5 square meters. And that gives a lot of contextual information. And then if you are to kind of combine that with your movements, it might infer something about if you've got your space planning right, if it's too busy, if something needs cleaning. And then I'm really excited by more voice interfaces. And it also feels that we're a lot more comfortable with, because we've got Alexas in our home, of having that sort of mechanism there listening to us the whole time. If I'm talking about, oh, Blum, I need to take my jacket off in here, it's a bit warm, maybe that's not me then having to say, Alexa, turn down the temperature. That inference makes something a lot more comfortable, which a high-end host would definitely get out of it. Or it might infer that you're trying to do some sort of collaboration, so somebody will be sent with a box of post-it notes, or you will get help with a particular AV issue that you're there. It's I don't want the technology to kind of like come to the rescue and I have to think about the help that I want. The magic is in it feeling like the building has a superpower. And so I think that what the UX is, we're not, we're not going to be designing like look and feels and colors and fonts and particular curved edges in mobile apps anymore. I think we will see like the boundary between knowing what I'm interacting with to disappear, or at least that is what I would really like to see. And kind of more broadly, I've just been so impressed with some of the conversational use cases that I've seen. My two absolute favorites are someone that I saw basically look at all of the ways in that they're this is before they even had their building, had fed all of the specification documents to a system that they were using and basically said, point out all the places that my consultants who supposedly collaborated, where there's clashes between what they're asking of each other. And the amount of rework on site that it was able to fix before it even happened is just like totally transformative to design. Or then, and then on the other side, on the operations space, one that I absolutely loved to see was in an application that we use called Azara AI that we kind of give our work dynamics clients. It helps them to ask questions, just as one example of what it does, of leases. And so to basically weaponize a real estate manager to know what's coming up, what they've got to do about it, back to your sort of space planning example, and then to help take them into a negotiation of some sort because they're able to see what else is going on the market. I think we're only really scratching the surface, and we need to sort of sit and invent how it can help give us those superpowers. So I'm very hopeful for the future.
So kind of you're saying that we will move from predictive maintenance to predictive experiences in terms of the building, as it will be catering for you and kind of anticipating what you want from that building. So I think that's a very, very interesting take. And I love the examples you named, because I think there's a lot of great small examples out there in the market that just aren't talked about enough, because we just talk about AI on the AI hype level, right? So I think it's very important to name these kind of examples where it is actually creating value already today. The one thing I think from conversational AI is the inclusivity as well, right? Because it is, if it's voice driven, it's very inclusive, right? You might not even have to be able to spell things half correctly, and you can still ask and be served and serviced. It lowers the threshold for any kind of software to use it when it's conversational, because again, you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be an expert in reading data, for example, be it about energy, be it about maintenance, be it about space. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to ask what you need to know, and you will be getting an answer in the format that should be understandable for you. And I think this is in our industry something, long awaited, let's say, and mind blowing, that you don't need to, have a PhD to understand a building anymore. As long as the software does its job well and you know what you need to ask, you should be able to interpret that data. And I think that point of inclusivity in kind of all its shape and forms, and from a user perspective, again, for any kind of neurodiversity or any kind of deficiencies, it really lowers that gap. And on the other hand, for the expert users, for the facility managers, to not have to train themselves on every software and every different system, and be those expert users, only the two people in the building who know how to use the software. I mean, we have to get out of that, because the building is used by so many, operated by so many. It has to become more inclusive in terms of using also the software and the technology in the building. So I love that topic of inclusivity as well that comes with conversational AI.
Absolutely. Maybe that's why our energy management myth still exists.
Could very well be. But then for this one, I guess we are busting this myth that it is absolutely not just a gimmick. It is, we've only scratched the surface. It does bring a lot of, as said, inclusivity, accessibility, and, the ability to find the data that you need and find also those mistakes that humans might not see. I think, I've often been asked actually this question, that if the building could speak, what would you want it to tell you? Or like, if you could ask a question from your building, what would you ask? And my number one question is always that, please tell me what I don't see at the moment, because that is where the power of AI comes into play. Tell me what my mere mortal brain cannot understand at the moment. So Gen AI here to stay, and only scratch the surface. Then let's move on to our last myth. So now we move into the hype topic of 26, agentic AI or AI agents. Will they be taking over the facility operations in the future? Matthew, what's your view?
Oh, I don't know. Because the really cynical part of me thinks, well, if this process really mattered to you, wouldn't you have standardized it and then used an existing like automation tool like a Microsoft Flow or something, and you'd have done something about it already? Like, it's not that automation is new. In fact, on my iPhone, I've got a series of shortcuts that I've programmed that will do things with the smart stuff in my flat, so that I don't have to use a series of apps, because I think we've determined I don't enjoy apps or admin, and so like I sort of feel like if it mattered, then maybe you'd have looked at this beforehand. But I do see the benefit in having that extra bit of intelligence there for the situations that might have broken your automation otherwise. So yeah, maybe I'm talking myself back into it. Um, maybe it was as we were talking about on the inclusivity thing. I didn't know how to program this thing, and whereas now I can use natural language to describe the outcome and the wish that I have. Maybe it means that they are feasible again and will be limited by our imagination.
And it's interesting because if I think 5 to 10 years back, and if I asked anyone operating a facility that what is your biggest pain point at the moment, and they would say, there's just so many alarms, and every system is blinking and everything is burning, and how do I prioritize amongst all of this? And then what software kind of intended to do is help with the prioritization. So you still have all your systems blinking and you have your 2,000 alarms per day, but at least it says, well, these are the priority alarms. That was kind of where technology moved. But now, if we can actually have agents to take over some of those, yes, it's an alarm, but you just need to, I don't know, push a few buttons and then it's sorted. That shouldn't even come to the attention of the human. It still needs to be sorted. It's still an alarm. It still needs to be corrected, but that can be corrected by the software itself. So, I think that this whole prioritization of time for facility operations and facility managers will become not a matter of, okay, these are the bold 5 bolded alarms that I need to attend, but more like everything that I don't need to attend personally that can be done, that's simple enough, will be covered by basically the agents, and they're sorting it out for me. So I think part of the predictive maintenance and part of the energy efficiency should be moving to AI agents. It doesn't mean that it's all of it, but some of it. And I think this is the mindset shift I would love to see in our industry, is to kind of see what can we do with agents. How can we make them as part of the facility team? They are a team member. They are not there to be the threat and replace all human operations, but they are there to do their part as a team member. And what they can do best is take that load off from those routine and small tasks that don't necessarily need strategic thinking on how do we now want to operate this building, or what should we be doing next in terms of, for example, the space planning, whatever the topic is, right? Let that junior team member called the AI agent do those kind of tasks and kind of eliminate a lot of that noise and that buzz that seemed, at least 5 to 10 years ago, was really the pain point. Maybe it's gotten a little bit better, as said, with the prioritization, but still it could be eliminated totally from the facility operation. So that is my view, that we need to give agents a chance. But what I also find as a challenge is that we don't often have the patience to let them learn.
Absolutely. And I think they're also difficult to get going with as well. At least for my kind of consulting team, where they, I think, see the greatest success in them is where they're somebody's passion project, and they own a lot of the data streams that they're looking to solve. But to make a really meaningful impact at an enterprise level, a lot of firms have got a lot of technical debt, and they don't necessarily have the documentation that's required to know or to explain to the agent or program it in the right way to go look at this thing because this lives here, it's owned by so and so, they've structured it in this way. And the way that we're trying to break down those interdepartmental silos, we've built a piece of IP specifically for real estate capability that we call a business capability model. And it looks at the channels in which a piece of information, insight, data is delivered, the front office functions that you might see across a firm, if that's commercial, customer service, design, transportation, the back office sort of fundamentals around finance, supply chain, risk, people experience, etc., as well as the enablers that make it happen. And using that as a map, you're very sort of quickly able to see who owns what, where it lives currently, where you've got duplication, perhaps fragmentation, total underinvestment, and it builds out the sort of cheapest and perhaps quickest, albeit sometimes the hardest, path to get to the sort of ultimate enterprise architecture. But then that means that you're entirely fighting fit for when you've got an idea of how to, mix, match, remix all sorts of different bits of data to get you those really transformative automations. That it seems to be the thing that is helping organizations unblock, if not the target state that they're going for, at least knowing what they have to do and the investment to get there looks like.
And that's
I
very
suppose,
interesting that you start from the capabilities in a way and kind of mapping out the status quo, because it's a very good point. If you are going to enable agents to take some of your workflows and some of your tasks, then you have to understand which ones they are, which workflows, where does it make sense? Again, just deploying agents there for the sake of saying, we have agentic AI, we are at the hype curve, that doesn't bring the value. It's the same as we talked about with Gen AI. So it's really about understanding where and what parts should be replaced by software and which shouldn't. And also, I mean, it's a matter of, as you said, do you have the data available that helps you in then deploying certain capabilities into software, right? If you don't have the data availability, then chances are that you don't end up, adopting the technology well enough so that it brings the value. It's quite interesting when you look at now the very recent studies. There's from Gartner, from MIT, from others who are saying about these kind of agentic AI projects and how they keep failing time and time again. So they predict from 50% onwards, upwards, that all these agent projects or POCs fail. And I could bet my money on it that the reason is because it hasn't been defined correctly. What is the agent there to do? What is the value that they should be bringing? So what tasks are they taking over? So it frees up time to do something else that brings more value in the facilities or whatever it may be. So again, we come back to that adoption of technology and kind of understanding what's the value that the technology brings and are we adopting it correctly so that it makes sense. So I think it's very interesting what you're saying in terms of mapping the capabilities and kind of seeing who is doing what and what does that impact, and seeing kind of how they interact as well. What are the interdependencies, for example? That's extremely interesting.
beyond AI, I also think our industry's at a bit of an inflection point because it feels like building technology has remained in the gadget space. A lot of the companies that have invested in this technology, despite the fact that they were probably delivered everything that they asked for, they didn't know really what to do with it or how to use it. I talk about the Starship Enterprise landing and nobody know how to fly it. And there's so many sort of simple examples. Could you prove that the investments that you've made in the number of air changes an hour actually reduce the number of sick days across your workforce? That data probably exists across a company because you've got, at least I know, all of the air data will be in the building management system, probably supplemented by a set of in-room sensors. And of course, from timesheets or payroll, you know exactly what's happened in the before and after situation. If only there was some sort of model that helped you bridge those two gaps. Or one is an anecdote of an organization who had a hunch that they probably have too much space, but anecdote wasn't enough for them to go and make big portfolio change decisions. So they invested millions of dollars in presence detection sensors so that they could know within the nearest minute what their actual utilization factors were. But nobody had ever tied together lease events and checking those dashboards. So they've got capability on both sides, but they never found that thing to stick them together. And is that just because they're two different specialisms where they probably don't even know who each other are in the organization, or they didn't have a common set of language where they might be able to interface? That's where agentic AI, I think, will be a capability leveler and will help the divide between those parts of real estate really come together. At least is my hope. Maybe it'll be one of the failed 50%. I don't know.
So we will be finally breaking the silos that exist, right, in the organizations. Then is that what
We
you're
can but
saying?
hope. I think
We
so,
can, but hope.
because it could make. I use it a lot to get a quick briefing on. Oh my god, I'm being sent into a situation. I don't know much about it. I need my primer, which could have taken me like a sort of day to do the very basics in the research before, and now I can have like a sort of report put in front of me. And well, I'm thinking if I can do that, then so can everyone else, and maybe that will help with those sorts of conversations, getting the plan together on how they're going to build some sort of link. Then they don't have to worry about trying to then translate that into technology, because the agent should be able to help translate that for them. Combine that with the business capability map. Oh, it's a doddle, right?
Nice. That sounds very good. So I guess then we can agree that yes, AI agents will be there in the future. They will be augmenting the way we operate buildings. They will and should be a valuable team member, but they are not there to fully replace humans, right? They are helping with those gaps, either with the overload or with some of those gaps, as you were saying, in translating to the language of the other side, let's say, whichever side it may be, and helping in bridging those and kind of breaking down the silos and bringing organizations more close together, and then creating that impact through that. So AI agents definitely there to stay. I think we should, again, leverage them more. I think that applies actually to all 4 points that we covered. So predictive maintenance, energy, Gen AI or conversational AI, and agents, all of them, we should just embrace them more and kind of derive that value out of them. But again, we need to know what's the value we want out of them before just dumping that technology in and, hoping for a better future. We need to know what we are driving towards. So maybe before we close or open it for questions from the audience, hopefully there will be some questions and grilling that we can answer to. What would be, Matthew, your one recommendation to the audience on now everything that we talked about of the different layers of the AI world in facility operations? What would be your advice? Where to start? What to do? How to embrace it instead of maybe treating it as a gimmick.
I think for most people, they've probably already got all of the data and the systems that they need. So to work out what's possible, map out what you've got, and then take it from there. Take your highest priority problems and draw some lines between those boxes and see how an agent might be able to help you.
I
What's
agree with
yours?
you. Exactly that. I mean, figure out what is the pain that you have currently and start solving it. Just start solving it with an open mind, thinking, okay, if I had now this new team member, this lovely little agent here, if I had that, then how would that make my life better? And kind of start designing from the pain downwards to how my life could be better when operating the building. And that's when technology drives that value. So I'm with you. Start thinking about what is the thing you would want to fix or solve, or what should be better today, and then start designing from that. Technology will follow. Capabilities are obviously there. It's not a matter of technology capability anymore. It's a matter of how to adopt technology in the correct way so that it derives value. So very interesting. Love the conversation. Thank you, Matthew. Then I guess we hand over to Corey for any burning questions.
Yes, we did have a couple questions that came in. I'm not sure if they're burning, maybe they're just smoldering, but let's get through those. That we have a couple minutes. The first one is, how accurate is the data that is being shown for predictive maintenance?
Who shall take this, Matthew? Do you want to say how accurate is the data?
Do we have something on a slide? I can't see the slides, remember. Is that the one we're referring to?
Just a question.
In general. Yeah.
Well, I suppose kind of close enough will do. Like in some, there's a diminishing sort of return in value for the more accurate that you make your data. Like just knowing in some cases the right direction, whether or not something is on or off, and for what length of time, is perfectly sufficient in order to get some good insights out of it and to act as a result. I think with a lot of these things, you don't have to wait for it to be perfect. Good enough will often do and give you some of the answers that you're looking for.
Exactly. And I mean, I was tempted to bring one picture to this, but anyone who wants to see this picture, ping me afterwards, about this chiller motor example that I said for predictive maintenance. And there, I mean, it was predictive maintenance that showed that something was wrong. I mean, yes, it didn't necessarily know exactly what was wrong. So then you needed the human still. The human is needed again, who are not being replaced, to see and inspect the motor, and it was actually, you could see this kind of grime that had been collected into it. So then the human could see, okay, this is what caused the problem. And again, we got that cost avoidance of, what was it, 130,000 or so from being able to repair that motor before it actually broke. So again, it's the hybrid, the human machine hybrid that will create it. And again, you need a certain quality of data, of course, because if it's just false alarm and false kind of false negatives, then that doesn't help. But as long as you have a certain level of quality, you know that something's off, something needs more attention or heightened attention, and then you can have the human inspection on top. Because at this stage, we don't yet have robotic inspection so much in the built environment. That's how you can reap the benefits. So yeah, data quality is important, but I think seeking for perfection in any of this that we've talked about is also a death valley, because then it's never good enough. And if you think about, again, AI as a team member, be it whatever those topics of AI, you don't expect perfection from a team member from day one. You expect them to learn and become better, and you learn to work with that team member. Same applies to software, right? So treat it as a team member, and then you maybe don't expect that perfection from day one.
Great. A second question is it possible to program each individual equipment to achieve energy optimization?
Very interesting question. So I think here, how I think of a smart building is that it's like a layered cake. I always visualize it like a cake. And every layer should have intelligence attached to it. So, when you have the devices, you need to ensure that those are as energy efficient and, as intelligent as possible on the device level. And then you go into the controls and the systems and so forth. Excuse me. And I think, we often think about energy optimization. It's only the cloud layer. That's what you just dump it on top, and suddenly, voila, everything, the whole layers of the cake are optimized fully. And that's not true. The optimization needs to happen. The intelligence needs to happen on every layer of that building. So I would absolutely recommend to have intelligent devices starting from that, so that you kind of optimize to the fullest your building. Now, should we, on that cloud software optimization layer, have everything on each equipment level? I would first question maybe the ROI. Matthew, I know you've worked a lot on the ROIs, and whether you see that kind of the return on investment, the effort, is the juice worth the squeeze? That would be the question I would have. I would rather take that layered cake approach and ensure that you have intelligent equipment throughout, to ensure that you don't then on the cloud level need to start maybe going on too granular a detail. Having said that, you cannot go on the main meter detail as well. There's an optimum somewhere in between. That's my view. Matthew, how do you see it?
Oh, I totally agree with you. And the juice is definitely worth the squeeze, particularly when it comes to maintenance and energy management. It's one of the fundamentals that unlocks value, not just in energy, which would typically be sort of 9% of 1% of a business's spend. It is the fundamental that unlocks the 9% in space management and the 90 that attributes to people cost that an organization has. I've got a kind of breakdown on how you can work some of it out in my book that's called The Smart Building Advantage, to the point that I am convinced that for every $1 that you invest in smart building technology, you should expect to see a $3 return at least, in a 5-year period. So that to me sounds like some good returns. And the only other thing that I'd probably say is you just got to get the balance in optimization right between what happens across those different layers, because you could go for what would be the very best optimization at the device level, but that has sacrificed something else upstream that might generate you more when you think of it as a whole system.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's no one size fits all solution. And of course, each equipment, if it's a very energy consuming, huge equipment, of course, then that might be, worthwhile monitoring separately, but not every single equipment in a building. I mean, then we're talking about a massive, massive amount of data. And again, maybe the juice is worth the squeeze even to go to that granular level, but I would, take it case by case basis. What makes sense commercially and from the value generated perspective.
All right. Our next is around asking for some examples for facilities KPIs and how can AI be used to manage those KPIs? Do you have examples?
Oh my gosh, there are loads. I think the sort of main 9 that I am particularly interested in are split between those 3 different buckets that I was talking about. You've got things to do with sustainability, which is typically around how you manage your HVAC energy sort of expenditure, lighting energy expenditure, and waste management. In space, I then think of that as around maintenance spend, the amount that you spend on your rental or having the sort of fabric of the building, and as well as any of the uplift that you need in IT as a result of going smart. And then on the sort of human layer, that so if you've got sustainability, space, and sapiens, that would be around how artificial intelligence and a lot of smart building technology can help with productivity leakage, the reduction in employee sick days, or even retention, which all has bottom line impact. Those can be measured, monitored, and improved by using these sets of systems. Those would be, I think, just the sort of basic 9 as the sort of top layer that I think almost any chief financial officer could get behind. And there are definitely sets of double clicks that you could do into those and almost match them to specific metrics, or then even down to the particular bit of data and where that lives level, that we often build for some clients in something that we call a performance management framework. So they can be very detailed. You can even link them to who in the organization might care. And then there's a lot of sort of good rule of thumbs that now exist from all sorts of research or experiences in delivery, where you could get a kind of sort of benchmark on where your performance currently is to other organizations for that facility type.
And I think what I would love to see is that we start treating facility operations as like a business critical activity. And that means that any KPIs that are there for that business that's run within that building, whatever it may be, if it's a hospital, if it's a school, if it's an office building, you name it, those business KPIs should flow down to the facility KPIs. And again, those what you mentioned, Matthew, would then contribute. They would contribute to whatever it is that they're trying to achieve from a business perspective in that building. But somehow we still see that kind of the facility or the real estate KPIs and the business KPIs are kind of separate. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity, because buildings can contribute a lot to the business that's run within, but only if we start seeing it that way, that the building is an active contributor and not just a passive asset or a worst case human warehouse. So I think that's, it needs to start from that business and then flow down to, as you said, Matthew, to those specific KPIs that can then cascade down to a very granular level as well.
All right, we have a few more questions, but I think we're just going to wrap up with one final one. And then for those that we weren't able to answer live, I'll work with the speakers to get answers to those and out to the entire audience. But the last one I want to close on is, what role do you think AI will play in predicting future space needs, especially as hybrid work models are evolving and changing?
I love this question. Do you want to start, Matthew, or shall I?
You go for it.
Okay, I cannot shut up about it. So I think absolutely AI is there to show exactly this predictive metric in terms of, for example, space planning. As I said, if you know that you are planning to increase people in your office, or you know that technology will be maybe augmenting the work of people, you won't need to hire as many in the future. All of those, like the technology changes that happen at the moment because AI enters the scene, that has an impact on how people work, where they work, and how many people are needed to do certain tasks and certain functions. And all of that then kind of cascades to that space need. What do I need for my space in terms of the quality or the type of space? Because the work is being executed a bit differently. Some tasks are maybe not done by humans anymore, and new tasks are done by humans. So there's the quality of the space, and then there's the amount of the space. And both are being now impacted with this, massive change or leap in technology. So I think AI will play a huge role, first of all, as the initiator of this wave of change. So AI is already a huge player there. But then second, in how do we plan for that change? What's the best way? Could we be adding more people into the same space without having to increase our space? In many times, yes, as I think, Matthew, you mentioned it, a lot of people have this sentiment that we are already fully booked or fully crowded in a space. And actually, when you read the data, there's still a lot of optimization that can be done. It's just a human sentiment. It's not actually the reality. Then we can enter to the discussion how we manage that human sentiment, because that's important as well, how you experience the building, if you experience it as too full. But nevertheless, AI has a huge part to play in simulating the possibilities in terms of quality and quantity of space, and kind of how to address the different needs as the business evolves. Again, the business evolves, the business KPI, and what the changes that will come with that, and how will that be reflected to the space. So I'm extremely enthusiastic about this topic. I think there's a lot of really great potential there for us to use technology in a very smart way. No further comments, Matthew?
No, nothing to add.
I was too enthusiastic about it, I know, but it's one of my favorite topics, so I'm glad this question was asked.
All right, with that, we are going to wrap it up. I just want to thank our presenters again, Matthew and Elisa, for your time, for the conversation, bringing this forward to our audience. It's very much appreciated. And I wish everyone a fantastic 2026, and we will see you again at our next Thought Leadership webinar in February. Thanks so much. Have a great day.